Girl, I worked at Amazon warehouse for a few years, Elizabeth, and you were called old? I think you'll be fine. If being called old is your biggest problem in life, then we should just switch places. I'll take your life off your hands. No pun intended. Not only have you gotten to live a long life, but you're rich too. Tell me you're privileged without telling me you're privileged. Hey, what's up, everyone? Thanks for tuning in to the Seen It For Real podcast, also known as the SIFR podcast. If you happen to disagree with me or would like to add something to the discussion, I would like to encourage you to share your thoughts, opinions, and your ideas in the comments. I hope you enjoy the podcast, and please discuss and disagree with one another respectfully. In today's episode, I'm kind of going to, it's not a review, it's more of a commentary of the movie The Substance. It's a festival movie from, what was the name of that festival? Hold on. There we go. Festival de Cannes. Dickhead? Elizabeth Sparkle, renowned for an aerobics show, faces a devastating blow on her 50th birthday. Her boss fires her. Amid her distress, a laboratory, if you want to call it that, offers her a substance which promises to transform her into an enhanced version of herself. Dun dun dun. No, for real, this movie is supposed to be a horror sci-fi. And you know what? I will give it credit. This movie was not terrible. The opening scene was an egg being inserted and duplicated. And then we move on to a montage of her slowly becoming irrelevant, the main character. Her Hollywood star is cemented into the floor. People are loving her and taking pictures. And then slowly in this montage, people start degrading her star. Not on purpose, but like you can see how irrelevant she's gotten. During this montage, I found out that leaves are so heavy that they can crack concrete. Isn't that crazy? So we get transported to Lady Elizabeth while she's doing some aerobics on camera. At first I thought it was like going to be like a movie set in the 80s because of the outfit that they were wearing and the socks. I was like, wow, this is old. These people are old. Okay, let me clarify that. As I was like listening to what I was saying, I'm I mean, like, I thought it was set in like the 80s, right? Which made me see the movie as like an old movie in a way. I wasn't saying that the actors in the movie are old. They're like, I mean, I don't even know how old they are, but they're probably up there, to be honest. That's the whole point of the movie, I guess, right? But no, that's not like the point of the outfit. It was just an aerobics outfit, and I guess they wore those long socks for style, not because this movie is set in the 80s or something. Honestly, I don't even want to. I'm going to talk about the highlights of this movie, and by highlights, I mean just like the things that stood out, for better or for worse. Now, this lady gets fired, right? She goes to the doctor. This weird doctor starts like feeling her up in her spine. She was suggested to go to this really creepy alleyway to get suspicious drugs that will then duplicate her life and make her younger. No, it didn't make her younger. It actually like duplicated her and then gave her a younger version of herself. So there were two hers, which is another thing I want to bring up, because the fact that she was already famous in this movie, everybody knew who she was. She has a Hollywood star, for goodness gracious. How did no one recognize that the younger version of her was the same person? If I woke up all of a sudden tomorrow morning and I saw a younger version of J-Lo or Pitbull walking around, I would have some questions. But no one brings that up in this movie, and they don't even make it like a thing where people are like, you look like this person when they were this age. And I guess this movie is a look into the expectations of beauty or women or whatever. But this movie was mostly made for famous people, because those are the only people who really deal with this stuff. Like, I could care less about any of this. The message only works when people actually care about it. 13 Reasons Why. People cared about the message of preventing self-harm. So it was a really well-liked show for the first season, maybe even the second. After that, it went off the rails. But I think that's why this one didn't work. Because in my opinion, I'd say this is not really this isn't a problem. This is not a real problem that I've seen people in my life have, or even people that I've met. If you made it this far into the episode and you're enjoying it, make sure you give it a like. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't, and turn on notifications so you don't miss future content. I want to get into the part of the movie where she really started to hate herself. She started to hate herself. To me, she seemed like a bitter old lady who was clinging to her old fame and she wanted the attention again. Or maybe it was for the money, but I doubt it because that never even came up, which we know is pretty accurate. It's just different when you see it in a movie. It becomes like sad, and not in like I feel bad for you kind of way, more of a ooh. Anyway, we're gonna go to the younger version of herself. The younger version of herself in this movie was I actually liked her. I did. She was funny. She brought a lot of life into the movie. There were a lot of comedic parts in this movie, which had me confused because I thought it was like a horror / sci-fi. I think I laughed more than anything else. The idea here is they are one, right? They are one. And so when one is activated, the other one is not activated. If Elizabeth wanted to utilize the younger version of herself for fame and money and attention, she would then have to transfer into the younger version of herself. You can see her sort of losing her mind. She starts to slowly dissociate herself from herself and starts seeing the younger version of herself as if they are not one. Elizabeth loses her mind to the point where she basically wants to kill herself because she's jealous of herself? I mean, it sounds so stupid when I say it like that. Like, what? So would that be a murder or a suicide? I'm sorry, that's totally funny to me. The spinal fluid parts where she was sticking the needle in her older self's spine was very gross. Like, I had to look away. When it comes to body horror, it grosses me out and I have to look away. I watched this movie called Stop Motion. I liked it a lot. That might have been the first time that I watched a horror film and actually almost puked. There was just a lot of scenes in there where the close-ups of, it wasn't the blood per se, it was just the flesh, the meat. It got violent. I mean, she really did go crazy towards the end there. The Substance had some moments like that too. Don't get me wrong. It definitely evoked a reaction out of me. The Substance, the body horror in this movie was the transformation whenever she would go back and forth between older and younger. She started to look grosser and grosser and grosser. I mean, she started to resemble, like, how do I explain this? Like one of those old hags or like the evil witch, bro. And then she turned into Dobby, and then she turned into a Demogorgon. There were things sagging all over the place. There was things oozing. I don't want to talk about it anymore. Like, it's just a weird, it was just a weird new creation. What bothered me about this creation, though, was no one seemed weirded out when she went to that final show that we've been anticipating for like a while in this movie. The commentary was so late. Like, if I was an audience member and I saw somebody walk on stage looking like that, I would have said something immediately, not waited 2 minutes to actually say something about it. She walks in with a fake poster on her face of a younger version of herself because her actual face is hideous now. And no one questions it. It got funnier as she started to fall apart into like pieces, literally and figuratively. Oh, I was laughing. It was just as funny as her trying to stick an earring in her eyeball. I was like, what the heck is going on right now? And this is what I mean by this movie was just too funny. I didn't even recognize it as a horror film. By the end of the movie, it all came full circle, sort of, kind of. And by the end of the movie, I mean, like, the last second where it leads back to the Hollywood star, Elizabeth's Hollywood star. And it's basically the same as what we saw in the beginning of the movie. When I say this was a good movie, it was decent. I had fun watching it. I was laughing a lot. But for what the movie was supposed to be about and the story that it was trying to tell, I just wasn't feeling it. Honestly, the movie made me dislike the older version, Elizabeth, more than I disliked the younger version. And I'm sure the movie was trying to get us to dislike the younger version. I don't even know what the movie was trying to do. But I didn't dislike younger Elizabeth at all. Don't tell Elizabeth I said that. Oh, I almost forgot. There was this shot that I liked a lot. There was this hallway. It was orange. Coolest shot of the whole movie. Every time. It was a reference to The Shining, if anyone's seen it. I've seen it once. That was enough for me. Not in like a bad way, but it was just enough for me. I didn't really see it again. Yeah, I think there were a few references in the substance that were references to horror movies, but the hallway was definitely noticeable. But that's not why I like the hallway. There was also another scene where this dude was just eating with his mouth open, and actually, it wasn't even some random dude. It was her boss. He was talking and eating with his mouth open. The close-ups, they really made sure to put us in his face with that one. I was like, can you please move the camera back just a little bit? Like, there was food everywhere. He was just being sloppy. It was so gross. I do like the idea. I like the idea of the cloning and creating a younger version of yourself for selfish reasons, and then there being consequences because of it. But I just wish it would have been a different story being told here. Like, I don't really care for the point of view of a celebrity. I want to point out, you already know that something ridiculously idiotic is probably going to go down, because usually when you're watching in this sort of movie, they tell the character, oh, don't do this or this will happen. And then at some point, the character does it. There was a bunch of nonsense I would categorize as filler that literally had nothing to do with the movie. It was just sometimes the younger version of her was just doing things, but there was no purpose to them to affect the story, really. What I want to say that this movie probably would have been a little bit better for me if it made more sense. Like, if their goal was to get the audience to empathize with the main character, if that was the goal. I just don't see anywhere in that movie where I would have gotten that feeling from, though. But if it was the goal, then maybe they should have gone for the angle of how it is now. Show us what it's like dealing with critics, hate comments from your point of view. Show us what it's like dealing with paparazzi or even people in the industry, of how they treat you badly the way your boss does. Maybe they don't. I don't know. Just do more than that. But you're not going to get the audience to empathize with you by showing us your boss being mean to you, Welcome to the real world. Because in real life, think about it. As an audience, I mean, you and me, us, we together create the audience. We are the audience. We are one. we see the hate comments. We see interviews. We see headlines. We see these things. So it would make sense to put it in a movie for the audience to see that affecting you. And then we could slowly watch you fall into insanity due to letting all of the comments and the negativity get to you. You let it get to you so badly that you made a unwise decision because you were told that you were old. Girl, I worked at Amazon warehouse for a few years, Elizabeth, and you were called old? I think you'll be fine. If being called old is your biggest problem in life, then we should just switch places. I'll take your life off your hands, no pun intended. Not only have you gotten to live a long life, but you're rich too. Tell me you're privileged without telling me you're privileged. Not a lot of people get to live that long. Just find a new passion or use the thing that you have created to end up where you are and transfer that into a bigger business that's somewhat related but not that related. Do something that has nothing to do with your age, I guess, if you're very concerned about that. We all want to live a very long time, I would assume. She was basically mad at herself the entire time. This is your fault. You did this. You did this willingly. You know what I think the funniest part about all of this is? She never learned her lesson, because if she had, she wouldn't have become that monstrosity by the end of the movie. Elizabeth was insane. Elizabeth, I hope you take my advice. That will be it for this episode. Whether you like this episode or not, please be sure to leave a rating or a comment letting me know why you did or didn't enjoy the episode. Thanks for listening, and you'll hear me in the next one.